Wonderful. Well, let's get started. And on behalf of Aon and the University of Sydney, I'd like to welcome you to today's webinar, Smart Health, Innovation in Healthcare. My name is Damien Kelly. I'm a client director within our health and benefits business in the Aon Health Solutions team. And today we're going to be focusing on China's emerging smart health sector, what it means for Australian businesses. And we're joined by some esteemed presenters who I will introduce to you shortly. Just before I ask our Australian CEO, James Baum, to welcome you all formally, I might just cover off some basic housekeeping. As you can see on the screen today, you have been entered in mute to avoid any interruptions into today's presentations. However, we will encourage you to give questions. As we're going through today's presentations, if you can ask those questions on the screen here, there's a chat function. And in that questions window on the right-hand side, we will endeavour to get through all of the questions that you asked today. If any slip through the cracks, we'll make sure we get back to you post today's event. And a huge thanks just before we get started as well to a couple of people that have made today happen. Obviously, originally we were hoping to do this in person in our new virtual world. We are doing this via GoToWebinar, but a huge thanks to Linda Hu, is the practice leader from our North Asian Insurance Services Practice Group. And I know, Linda, you've worked tirelessly along with Susan and the team over at the University of Sydney in the China Studies Centre to make today happen. So welcome to you. Thank you for your efforts. James, I can see you've popped up on the screen now, and I'd like to hand over to you to say a few words of welcome. Good morning, James.
Morning, Damien, and thank you. So let me extend my thanks from Damien as well. But on behalf of Aon, it's a pleasure to welcome everyone here today for the Smart Health webinar, and as Damien said, in partnership with the China Studies Centre at the University of Sydney. So I'd also like to welcome, or add my welcome, should I say, to our esteemed speakers and thank them for their time today, as well as their efforts in preparing some really great, amazing insights that they'll be sharing with us during the session, and I'm sure you'll thoroughly enjoy it. So, look, we're very proud of the relationship that we have with the University of Sydney, and it continues to develop and strengthen year on year, and it sees us involved in multiple faculties and departments such as university infrastructure, IT, clinical trials, and look, many others. And I should also say that our North Asia Insurance Services practice, led by Linda Hu, as Damien said, has been working, closely with our partners from the China Studies Centre at the university, to bring this session to you today. And no doubt you'll find both interesting and insightful, as I said. So, we'll look at what only can be considered one of China's most promising sectors for the future, and that is smart health and what that means for business here in Australia, particularly at a time such as this. So for those who may not be familiar with our services, Aon and our North Asian Insurance team, deliver risk consulting, insurance broking, and related solutions to businesses operating in the region, and drawing upon what we consider to be a unique understanding of the challenges and cultural differences of the various geographies and speaking, and of course in local languages. So, but it'd also be remiss not to mention all the incredible work that the health sector, at large has been doing in the current environment, and ensuring that technological advancements, which no doubt some people on the webinar will have been involved with. At Aon, we've been referring to the impact of COVID and the path forward that depicts a unique opportunity as our new better. So, and as Damien said, in fact, the seminar that we're running today, which is very different to how we would normally do it, it actually presents a different opportunity for us to bring a much broader, more diverse group, people together. So, it's better ways to working together, better ways to serve our clients, importantly, our communities, and certainly a better path forward that includes all of our colleagues that are joining us on the call today. So, I can certainly say from a personal perspective, I've been, greatly enthused by just how adaptable, everyone in the Aon world and in the business community has been, during this time. I won't say we haven't missed a beat, but it really does feel like, we are in a new normal and almost as a business as usual type environment. So that said, it's not lost on me, you know, how disruptive this time has been and the real impact on people's daily lives, and of course in terms of people's mental health, which you know, we continue to worry about. And at Aon, we're doing our part to keep our colleagues and community safe and supported as possible. And that's why as you look around the screen, you can see some of us are in office environments, some of us are still working from home. But as I said, you know, we're supporting some of those personal choices there. So with that, Damien, once again, I'll extend my warm welcome to all of you. And as we like to say it on, you know, everyone please stay safe. And I hope you enjoyed today's session. But with that, back to you, Damien.
Wonderful. Thanks for that, James. We appreciate your support, not only of today's webinar, but also our North Asian Insurance Services team and our wonderful partnership with the University of Sydney. So thank you again. And on that note, it gives me great pleasure now to welcome from the University of Sydney China Study Centre, Dr. Olivier Crichet, to welcome everybody to today's webinar. And established in early 2011, the China Study Centre is a strategic initiative aimed at strengthening understanding and collaboration in researching global issues in China. Dr. Crichet is the acting director of the China Study Centre, along with being an art historian whose research regards, and I read this with great interest, Olivier, when I was seeing your bio, the role of art theory and practice in modern and contemporary China-Japan relations, and more recently, networks of artistic activism from Hong Kong and across East Asia. So if that's piqued anybody's interest, the Q&A later could get quite interesting. But prior to joining the centre, Olivier has been a fellow at the Academia Sinica in Taiwan and also holds a postdoctoral fellow at Australia's National University. So a very good morning to you, Dr. Crichet.
Thank you, Damien. It's fantastic to be here, and on behalf of the China Study Centre, I'd also like to congratulate our co-hosts, Aon, for doing such a great job bringing this together with us today. As you've just heard, our community is pretty diverse. So the China Study Centre supports an active research community at the University of Sydney of over 300 academic members, and they work across 20 disciplines, including, as we'll hear today, in health and technology. In events such as this one, which we like to think of as industry engagement events, we're really focused on trying to connect the university's research excellence with the opportunities and challenges that are shared by Australia and China. And we believe it's important not only because China, of course, is our leading trade partner, but as many may be aware, recent statistics show it's become our most significant research partner as well. The current pandemic, I think, makes pretty clear how connected our societies are and how we really must work together to be solving these sorts of really big issues. And I think health is perhaps one of the biggest. So developments in digital health have been incredibly exciting, and they already actually impact millions of people's well-being in Australia and China. And today we're going to hear, I think, a lot more about the opportunities in this sector, certainly in China, and what that means for Australia. So I'm really pleased that the China Study Centre can co-host this expert panel with Aon, and I thank James Baum, the CEO who we just heard from, and particularly Aon colleagues for working with Susan from our centre to do such a great job getting it together. It's fantastic to be joined by industry experts from BGI Australia, from Tongwall Clinic Health Technology in Shenzhen. Thanks for joining us from Shenzhen today, and Risk Logic as well. I also have to acknowledge our first speaker, who's Professor Branka Vucetic, who's the director of the University of Sydney Centre of Excellence in Telecommunications and IoT. So I'm not going to do the introduction. I'll hand over to Damien, but it's fantastic to have Branka on this expert panel as well. Thank you to all our audience today as well. We've had a very positive and strong response. And with that, I will also be very fascinated to see the sorts of Q&A that we have after today's session. Thank you. Over to you, Damien.
Wonderful. Thank you, Dr. Crichet. We appreciate your warm words of welcome, and thank you to you and your team for co-hosting today's webinar. As you mentioned, it gives us great pleasure to kick off our presentations. There's going to be 4 presentations before our Q&A today. And to begin that process, our first presenter is a very warm welcome to you, Professor Branka Vucetic, from who is the Director of the Centre for IoT and Telecommunications at the University of Sydney. So Branka's work aims to develop theoretical framework and design principles for wireless communication systems. You are obviously internationally recognized, as I've read in your bios, Branka, and you're an recognized expert in coding theory and its applications in wireless engineering, holding various research and academic positions in the UK, Yugoslavia, and in Australia. And since 1986, you've been with the School of Electrical and Information Engineering at Sydney University, where you're currently the Laureate Professor and Director for that Centre of Excellence in Telecommunications. So over to you, Branka.
Thank you, Damien. Good morning, everyone. I'm delighted to be able to participate in this webinar on smart health. So my talk will be on giving an overview on IoT applications in healthcare. So global and Australian healthcare face similar challenges. Aging population and increasing rates of chronic diseases are driving rising costs of healthcare services. And the problems are compounded by shortages in medical workforce and inadequate hospital infrastructure. It is envisaged that healthcare services will become unaffordable to a huge section of society as they become unproductive due to old age. The COVID pandemic discovered new weaknesses of the system, its inability to respond to new health issues. Next, please. Next slide, please. So IoT in healthcare in general could solve many healthcare problems. For example, it can offer more accessible and cost-effective healthcare. IoT combined with big data and artificial intelligence can improve diagnostics and patient satisfaction, while at the same time releasing pressure on hospitals. IoT combined with genomics can advance personalized healthcare. So what is the IoT? The IoT is acronym for the Internet of Things. And that is a network consisting of three basic functionalities. First, sensors. Second, communication network. And third, computing facilities with artificial intelligence. So sensors are generally measuring data on human body, for example, like blood pressure or glucose level or blood oxygen level. And the data that sensors generate are transmitted via communication networks to computing facilities with AI capabilities, which analyze data and produce reports to be sent to medical practitioners. Next, please. So this is a list of possible IoT-based healthcare services. The COVID pandemic forced hospitals and other caregivers to treat some patients remotely in order to avoid risk of infection by bringing them to care facilities. Other possible IoT-based services are remote monitoring of chronic diseases, assortment and analysis of data to improve diagnostics, video monitoring and personal virtual assistance for elderly patients, inventory management and equipment tracing in hospitals, and telerobotic surgery to provide operations remotely by controlling robots. Next, please. So this is a list of the current IoT-based projects at our Centre for IoT and Telecommunications at the University of Sydney. We have developed an IoT platform for healthcare that could be used for various services. And we have also developed wearable electrocardiogram sensors. And by using this platform and these sensors, we are able to offer this IoT system services for monitoring and detection of heart diseases, emotion detection, sleep quality, and sleep order analysis. We have also developed an IoT system for remote monitoring of COVID-19 symptoms and are developing a dashboard for data visualization for presenting the medical reports. So this is an IoT platform for healthcare. So this is an IoT system which consists of a sensing network and communication network with Internet of Things based cloud and graphical user interfaces with patients and hospitals. So the sensor network consists of wearable sensors, for example, ECGs and sensors for measuring blood oxygen level and temperature and ketone levels. And they're connected via a local network to another long-range network and to the computing facilities. So the local area network consists of Wi-Fi, Zigbee, and Bluetooth devices. And they collect data from sensors and transmit over a long-range network, which is either 4G, 5G, or LoRa, to computing facilities. And our computing facilities are data servers located in our lab or in commercial cloud-based computing. By developing this platform, we have a digital infrastructure that would be able to support many IoT-based healthcare services. Next, please. So in the next project, which is developing an ECG monitor, the objective was to replace currently available ECG monitors, traditional Holters, with multiple electrodes. So the gold standard has 10 electrodes, and it is bulky, not suitable for continuous monitoring, and it is expensive. So our objective was to develop a compact wearable sensor, and this is shown in the next slide. We have developed new compact ECG devices over 3 generations. So in the first generation, we produced a device which weighs 24 grams and can provide some basic diagnostic analysis like heart rate variability indicator. In the second generation, we developed a device which weighs 14 grams. It is medical grade and it's wearable and can be used for real-time continuous monitoring. And in the third generation, we are developing new devices which will have artificial intelligence embedded in the actual device. Next, please. So the currently available second generation device generates ECG signals by using these wearable sensors. And these signals are transmitted via mobile phones to a cloud-based AI, artificial intelligence engine, which can produce medical reports in several seconds. And these clinically actionable digital reports are sent to medical practitioners via mobile phone. Next, please. So the future device, which is currently being developed, will have 2 versions. Mobile version will have not only the capability of generating the ECG signals, but also will have AR smart capabilities that could analyze the data on the device itself and send the reports via a mobile network to medical practitioners. The second version is residential version. It does not have AI capabilities, only generates ECG, but it is connected to edge computing device like laptop or PC at home, which will have an AI engine that produces digital reports to be sent to medical practitioners. So both of them are wearable. So in summary, we have developed an IoT-based platform for health monitoring and hospital management that can provide various IoT use cases together with the ECG sensors and AI-based engine. So we have been using these systems for heart disease analysis, emotion detection, and sleep quality analysis. And we have also developed an IoT system for remote monitoring of COVID-19 patients in quarantines. Thank you, and I will be happy to answer your questions.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for your time, Branka, and for sharing some of that amazing and fascinating work that's being done. It's a really great insight into the intersection of the IoT and healthcare. And looking forward to some questions for you, I'm sure, in our panel a little bit later on. Thank you, Branka. And now I'd like to introduce our next presenter, Ms. Bishen Yang, a Director for BGI Australia and also General Manager for Oceania and Director for International PR from the BGI Group. BGI is the world's largest genomic organisation with leading sequencing platform and bioinformatics analysis capability. As we go through today's presentation, you'll learn a lot about what Ms. Yang and her team are doing in the current pandemic. And established in 2016, BGI opened up in Australia as a result of the growth in the Asia Pacific region. And it's devoted to the facilitating cutting-edge research in the areas of healthcare, agriculture, and the environment. And Ms. Yang was appointed Director for BGI in April of 2016 after holding senior positions at the company's headquarters in Shenzhen. So over to you, Ms. Yang.
Thank you, Damien. It's a great pleasure to be here. So today I will talk about BGI's effort using genomics to benefit the human beings. So BGI focused on using genomics technologies to further develop the applications towards precision medicine and precision health. We established in 1999 in China, and after over 20 years development, we have grown into a global organization with our service and solutions in more than 100 countries. And our headquarters in Australia is located in Brisbane. So our global team has more than 6,000 employees. Next, please. So why DNA? So DNA is fundamental to life. So traditional medicine is all based on the evidence. We find a disease, we find a treatment, but DNA actually can give us the fundamental cause of all the diseases. So by combining the precision together with evidence-based medicine can give us a more panoramic view of our personal health. Next, please. So the basis of health is encoded in genes. As you can see from the picture down on the right, that when we age, we actually accumulated more and more mutations in our genes. And those mutations are also heterogeneity, which can cause various types of diseases. If we look at the more common diseases, cancer is mostly caused by genetic mutation, infectious disease is caused by exogenous genes, and complex diseases are mostly because of susceptible genes, and birth defects are the gene abnormalities. So understanding the genetic foundation of all the disease will help us to prevent and also find the treatment. Next, please. So how do we understand the genetic mutation and gene abnormality? So the global scientists developed a technology to be able to decode the genetic sequence. So we see the genetic sequence is the ordering of the genetic codes, and we can use technologies to read out the genomic sequences and also use high throughput, high performance computing to analyze the genomic codes and translate them into a computing language, so we can find the genetic mutations and also the other genetic abnormalities. Next, please. So with the next slide, please. With the first genome decoded in 1990s, it cost about $3 billion US. And since then, actually, the genomic sequencing technology has gone through several revolutionary development. So nowadays, the genomic sequencing cost is more affordable. And BGI also started to develop our own genomic sequencing technology since 2015. We have launched several different throughput and models of genetic sequencer. So we've been able to further decrease the genomic sequencing cost to make it more affordable and accessible to all the general public. Next, please. Next slide, please. And at the same time, the technology has to be combined with scientific research. So BGI ranked on top 1 in terms of bilateral collaboration. So BGI is a very open and collaborative organization. Because we collaborate with a global organization, we've been able to find more scientific discoveries which can further translate to downstream applications using the genomics technologies and tools. Next, please. And since then, we have developed a series of solutions across the health continuum, from pre-pregnancy to perform the carrier screening, the chromosome abnormal screening, to prenatal, the non-invasive prenatal test to test the chromosome disorders, and also the newborn screening to test any inherited metabolic diseases, to the cancer, hereditary cancer, or more targeted therapies for particular cancer, and also through to pharmacogenomics that we can test the reactions of individual person towards certain treatment and certain drugs, and also moving on to infectious disease that we also develop metagenomics technologies that we can detect the pathogens which cause the infectious disease or unknown infectious disease. Next slide, please. So in terms of the infectious disease that we all know this year, COVID-19 is caused a pandemic issue over the globe, which just an example of how important we have to focus and to have a quick response to the infectious disease. And BGI, since before its establishment, have a strong involvement and focus in terms of fighting against the infectious disease, from HIV to SARS to Ebola, and this year to the COVID, to the SARS-CoV-2. Next slide, please. So BGI is one of the first organizations that sequenced the SARS-CoV-2 genome, and then we quickly established detection kits that can identify the COVID-19. And we established first emergency lab in Wuhan. Then we be able to help and deploy the lab solution to over 20 countries. And also we've been distributing our testing kits to over 180 countries. And also we developed an innovator we call AirLab that can quickly deploy to any locations that may not have available lab facilities that we can help to quickly deploy and improve the testing throughput. Next slide, please. And we were very honored to be able to help and also to support the response to COVID-19 in Australia by collaborating with Department of Health and Mindru Foundation. So we helped to install 11 testing laboratories across the country and introducing our testing solutions and provide technology transfer to be able to improve and increase the testing throughput and capacity across the whole country. So it also shows the importance of accumulated knowledge and technology readiness to be able to have a very quick response during this pandemic situation. Next slide, please. So moving forward, looking towards the future health, genomics is the fundamental of health, but as a living individual, we also interact heavily with external environment and internal environment. So it's important to look beyond genomics, that we have to integrate the other level of biological information, from biochemical to imaging, and also to understand our own behavior and living habits. They will all contribute part of our health. So moving forward from the passive acceptance of just treat our disease when we have a condition, we have to move on to more proactively to practice this personal health and precision health to be able to improve our overall health conditions by utilizing all these available technologies, and also to be able to understand more as a holistic human being of all the important issues related with our health. Next slide, please. So overall, BGI's mission is to utilize all the technologies available to provide a more precise and also personalized treatment and healthcare management tools to change our living habits, and also to create a new era towards the overall well-being of all the individuals. That's the end of my presentation. Thank you very much.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Bisheng. Really, really fascinating. Genomics has been something that I've been watching closely over the last 10 years, and seeing how you've been so closely involved in finding a solution to our current pandemic. We thank you for your work there, and some amazing applications for all of our health, not just now, but into the future. So a reminder to everybody watching today to please share some questions in the questions panel on the right-hand side of your screens, and we'll come back to those in the Q&A. Thank you again, Ms. Yang. Now it gives me pleasure to introduce everybody to Mr. John Zeng, co-founder and chairman of the Tonwo Clinic Health Technology. John is a former listing electronic devices company CEO who's always had a long-term vision and passion for cellular IoT tech that has the ability to support the sustainability of living equally, both in rural and urban areas. Since 2017, the Tonwo Clinic Technology team have been working very closely with Australian universities and researchers to develop e-health platforms for data through connecting IoT medical devices. John is going to share some of his stories, and I'm looking forward to these, John, about technologies, how they're being used in the Australian community. And as we're going through John's presentation, again, please put some questions into the chat function. Over to you, Mr. Zeng.
Thank you, Simon. Thank you, everybody. Next slide, yeah. Yeah, I think I will give a brief introduction of Tonghua Clinic. Actually, Tonghua Clinic was found in Guangzhou, which is the biggest capital city of southern China. And Tonghua is the satellite town of Guangzhou. So traditionally, it's a agriculture kind of urban town. So we have a big urban population. And the mission of the team is provide a community hospital service to those people living in the urban area. So actually, we only have 35 doctors, and we need to service pretty big population around the urban areas, stick around. So we have a pretty lean or interesting on the IoT technology to help to improve the efficiency of our doctors. And by the way, I think for some people who don't know China, and most of the hospital in China is state-owned, and this is one of the few is a private-owned hospital or clinic service in China. Next slide, please. Basically, I think our journey is start from 2017, where I visit Australia with our CTO, Norman. Actually, when we went to Australia, we are looking for the off-the-grid power solution for Australia, actually, because Australia is, of course, one of the best medical service provider or country in the developed world. However, Australia is also pretty unique with 29% of the population in the very remote area, and also about 69% of population located in the urban area. So the people is living around the country. So while we visit Australia, we have a good chance to connect to the telecom community. Actually, we found out at that time in the work, the telecom community is going to launch a new technology called NB-IoT, which is supposed to belong to the 5G protocol. Okay, and at that time, there's only 2 labs in the world. One is in Beijing and one is in London. And then we just get the news that it's going to build a 3rd lab in Cairns, JCU, to build a kind of NB-IoT platform over there. So we certainly found out this NB technology is probably one of the best connection method to service the medical IoT technology. So because all the features I will introduce a bit later. So anyway, we set up a small team and then went to Australia in JCU. Then we start our first journey of building the IoT based on NB-IoT technology. So the first challenge we have, the first generation we have, is the size. Because original NB-IoT technology was built for the smart city. So the chip is pretty big size. So basically, it's built for the power control, all these kind of big device. So we minimize the size so that it can fit in a medical device. That's our first challenge, which we did in Cairns. And then we based on that, we provide the full set of the sensor in Australia, which is the first one in the world on the medical science to test it in JCU. Then move on. Later on, we found out in the Western communication technology, the people got to be more used on the Cat M1 technology, which is mainly come from Qualcomm, which is the original NB leading by Huawei. Okay, so we strip our team, split into two teams, and one is stay in Australia, continue convert the platform from NB narrowband IoT to Cat M1, and we also try to build a CAM platform to service it. So at the same time, another team go back to China. We use NB IoT to start to test the connection, reliability, all this kind of thing in China, because in China, the NB IoT infrastructure already finished. And at the same time, Australia is still building the Cat M1 platform, led in by Telstra in Australia. And now all the platform we have is based on the NB M1 and the Cat M1 and combined with NB IoT, two together. That is the second generation of the chipset. Now our team is working on the third generation, which is Cat M2, which including the positioning technology and the smart voice technology. So this will give us the more capability on the positioning to service the senior people, just in case they fall down on the street or this kind of thing. Next slide. So we believe our technology basically is we are able to provide the support to the challenge of Australia children's disease management. So because of all the convenient technology built on infrastructure to support this one. Next slide, please. So here is the IoT potentially help for the medical area, which I will not talk too much because the previous presenter already cover more better for me. So I will move to more detail into the technical platform, which is led by M1 and NB IoT. Next slide, please. So originally we have a video to show this connection. However, due to the technical problem, we cannot play the video, but this video is available in our website. So you are more than welcome to download this video and see the technology connection in more visualized. Next, the connection, the NB IoT. What is NB? Basically, NB IoT is based on the G2 brand, not G5. It's a 2G brand. So if you use a mobile phone, basically now we use a 4G or 3G. So if you go to the area which have a less signal, then you find out the mobile phone automatically drop to 3G. And even in the worst area, for example, like in the elevator, you will find out it will connect by 2G, only voice message. So it means when the people buy the mobile phone, basically we already finished purchasing all the bandwidth from 2G, 3G, 5G, 4G to 5G. Okay, but we normally don't use it. So NB is trying to utilize the 2G bandwidth, which is the old mobile phone use it before. So because the IoT do not need so many data transfer, so we cut the original mobile phone number from 1 to 100. So we add 2 digits for the NB. It means one mobile phone, original one mobile phone service bandwidth can support 100 IoT device. So this will give us a kind of assumption. It means each device can automatically call the station, the citizen station, versus the traditional LoRa. You need to set up a separate station. You just directly call the mobile phone station. You can imagine while you're calling the mobile phone, your device also calling the station at the same time. So this gives us a much more advantage versus the traditional Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, or LoRa connection. Okay, and of course, after we send all those data to the station, we connect to the Crown platform, which is we spent a long time, roughly about 2 or 3 years in Australia to develop the security, all this kind of support interface in the Crown and to our client in the hospital. Next slide, please. Next. Yeah. Next, please. Yes. And this one will give the roughly advantage of the introduction of advantage of NB-IoT and M1 platform, because it is based on the 2G platform. Of course, it gives us more reliable connection. The people can move, and the device can move. It's just more easy to integrate. And most importantly, most of the infrastructure already built in the country through the mobile phone system. So we don't need to invest a lot of hardware into the telecom community network. For example, like a Telstra, Vodafone, or Optus. So it's a low-cost solution. And for the people who use 2G before, you can remember the phone can last much longer because the power consumption is really low. And in the old time, the mobile phone can last roughly about 1 week and one month standby. But actually, for the IoT device, it can last for roughly optimistic it's about 10 years is possible. So people can basically forget to charge the device. Next slide, please. So this gives the summary of the advantage and disadvantage between different wireless communication platform or method. Next slide, please. So for the information security, this is the most challenged area for the IoT used in the medical device. So basically, I think we strictly follow the Australia privacy ACT regulation to build all the platform. One of the most different technology we use is we use the broadcast ID to separate the data from the client and the actual data in the hospital. It means all the data monitored in the system with a secret code. So even people hack in the system, they only get the data, but they don't know who is the data, who is the actual people. And the people is separated owned by the hospital server and the hospital security system. So it's a little bit like a banking system. It's like a bank, and the data and the people is all separate. And we have to utilize the password system and security control to make it connect together. Next slide, please. So next slide. So this is the platform we already built, finished built on data platform, which is available for the clinic and hospital. Next slide. Next, please. And this is the interface connection. You will see, basically, you can see different devices can show on the one platform. So the doctor can make a decision based on, for example, the blood pressure, body scale, oxygen level, to see the chain of their clients. Next, please. And this device is specially developed for COVID-19 to prevent the doctor and the nurse, so that this device can provide the oxygen meter in the remote way in the real time. So just it's very important for COVID-19 people in case they have a low oxygen level in their blood, then we need to call emergency and decide what to do. Next step. So next slide, please. This one is the blood pressure. Basically, we build for the hospital that especially, this is already available sale in China, in Tonghua. And basically, the hospital can check the blood pressure in a chain. So for example, if you use a natural treatment medical device or food device to control the blood pressure, the doctor can see the chain, if they're going to the right chain or go to the wrong chain. And rather than traditionally, the blood pressure is a dot. Now we get a line. We got a chain to see if it's moving to the right direction. Next slide. So this is a body fat scale. Also, again, this is a device, first device we developed for for CDC in China, which is one device for multiple user. It means only one user in the clinic, and thousands of clients comes in and check their body fat, and then go into the big data system. Then we can see the glucose impact on this on the fat on the body fat. Move on. Next slide. So this is the widespan we have. Basically, this is checking the how many calorie consumption. This is the first generation. How many calorie consumption and connect to the glucose data, so that the doctor can provide the advice for the client how to improve their food or their living behavior. And the next generation of widespan will build in the positioning, so that just in case the senior or the client just fall down, or in some incident they have some emergency help, then we can position him and we can call the ambulance at the same time. Next slide. Yeah, I think this one just show what we can do. Basically, our team is very small, but we have a pretty international background, and we service Telstra, Weatherphone, and we know how to connect all those build a communication network. Next slide. And our company is building our more localized in Australia. We have more localized stuff in Australia. We are setting up our R&D company in Australia. Next slide. And this is some of the events we have in Australia, cooperate with Griffith University and Johns Hopkins University. And yeah, that's it. And please look at the video on the website, and you can see our progression in Australia. And this is the thanks for all this of our partner. Thank you. That's all.
Wonderful. Thank you, John. On behalf of everyone, we appreciate your time today. Thank you so much. It's a very interesting look at the world of wearables. No longer is it just something that measures our steps. It's an evolving space, and innovation and tech. It's incredible what we're able to manage and measure in the digital age. And a fascinating piece that I'm sure we'll have some questions for you in the Q&A. Thank you, John. So now it's my pleasure to invite Dan, so Mr. Daniel Shields, the CEO of Risk Logic, to speak with us. And Dan, just after that chat, there'll be some good opportunity for us to discuss the risk of so many wearables and so much measurement and so much data that's going to be out there. Dan, you're obviously a highly experienced consulting professional. You're co-founder of Risk Logic and a subject matter expert in risk, crisis management, incident response, and business continuity, with more than 20 years experience, including internal roles at Westpac, Cuscal, and HSBC. You've got extensive experience working through Australia, New Zealand, Fiji, Indonesia, and PNG. And I'm guessing right now you're pretty busy. So over to you, Dan, to share with us a little bit about risk in the not obviously not just the pandemic, but in today's age.
Well, Damien, thanks very much for that introduction, and thank you for the opportunity to talk today. Just a little bit about Risk Logic before I move into my discussion points. We've been around for nearly 16 years, and today we're the largest provider of what we call organisational resilience services to Australia and New Zealand, but also around the world, the US, the UK, Europe, and Asia as well. What do we mean by organisational resilience? Well, it's about supporting organisations to prepare for and respond to major incidents. So some of those types of incidents, cyber attack, pre-COVID, we'd probably call that the #1 threat facing organisations, and I'm going to talk a bit about that today in relation to smart health. Security threats, we'll talk about those. Pandemics, obviously COVID has changed the world as we know it. The types of things that we talk about with clients and help prepare them for are things like as I said, those events by providing crisis management services, business continuity, crisis communications, and cyber consulting services. We also have a long-standing partnership with Aon, and we've been working very closely with Aon for about 5 years now to provide those kinds of services to Aon clients. Today, my focus is going to be on some of the considerations that we need to think about with the provision of smart health solutions, some of the impacts on the successful provision of those services. I'm the final presenter today, but we've seen some really fascinating developments in the industry and some incredible opportunity to improve health outcomes for people by using technology and embracing technology. But with that obviously come risk, and some of those risks have the potential to impact the success of some of those solutions and can have very real impacts on people. So what I'd like to do is start off by talking about the threat environment, and that's really about putting this into context for everybody in terms of what smart health can do. As you can see on my slides, look, I think the key to talk about here is uncertainty. Our threat environment, or the things that could happen, the environment has been changing so rapidly over the past couple of years, not just COVID, well before that, in terms of cyber and some of the geopolitical issues and natural disasters and some of the things that we're seeing. And then to see COVID and the impacts of the pandemic on society, well, it's been a fundamental change there. So the word uncertainty is really the most important word to use there. And we're predicting, obviously, that to continue for some time. We may get a vaccine in the near future, but we're going to be living with the impacts of COVID for quite some time, 12, 18 months, 2 years, and we have to be able to adapt to that. What COVID has really shown, though, is that organisations were focusing very heavily on the things that had the higher probability of occurring, and cyber, of course, is one of those events there. But not a lot of focus on what we call high impact but low probability events. When we look at risk registers, the word pandemic has always been on there for many organisations, but very few organisations were prepared to put the time and effort into preparing for them because it was considered such a low probability event. In reality, though, the word pandemic, it's something that we've all thought will happen at some stage, really a matter of when, not if. And unfortunately, we've seen the reality of that over the past 6 months with COVID. Another aspect of that threat environment then is a really important one, is that we've been so focused on our ability to respond to COVID over the last few months and try and stabilise business. A lot of organisations have not been thinking about some of the other threats that could impact them. And the really important point to note is that the threat environment hasn't changed just because we're dealing with COVID. So all those other threats that were there before COVID, all the things that could hurt organisations, well, unfortunately, they still exist today. And it's very important now for organisations and for society to be able to manage through COVID, but also manage those other threats that could cause loss or damage. So our focus really has to be on strategies to minimise impacts to organisations and their stakeholders, with operating really with dual threats, dual events taking place. So we need to be able to have strategies, plans and capabilities in place to manage the impacts on people, on operational capability, on an organisation's brand, on their legal and their strategic impacts if things were to occur. So what I'm going to talk about now are the key trends that we're seeing in the environment today in this COVID world. So we can go to the next slide. So the first one is that organisations need to be able to deal with what we call fast response and slow burn incidents. Pre-COVID, what we were really seeing is one size fits all in terms of how an organisation reacts and responds to something going wrong. A lot of that was around the concept of crisis management or incident management planning. What we're seeing with COVID, though, is it's a type of event that took many months to materialise or really show what the impacts were going to be. It was very easy, and we did the same. We predicted what could happen back in January. We ran scenarios on what could happen, but ultimately, when it did start to occur there, it was quite a different response to what most organisations are preparing for, which are those fast response events like a cyber attack, which requires immediate action to try and minimise the impacts and the ability for it to escalate. The second thing we're seeing is that organisations now need to deal with multiple events concurrently, and it's something which We really didn't have to have that from an overall perspective. Pre-COVID, an organisation might have been hit by a cyber attack or a security incident or a fire or an IT failure, but they were dealt with, and it was pretty unlucky if an organisation had a second event happening at the same time. Unfortunately, today we've got to deal with COVID, but also other events taking place. We know organisations are more vulnerable now. Most organisations in most industries have less capability to be able to withstand the impacts of an event, and they're more vulnerable because they're operating in a different way that they used to, and some of those things that they rely on are not there. Their employees are typically less resilient, so when things do go wrong in an organisation, they are impacted by an event. Employees are struggling with the impacts of COVID, either financially in their own circumstances, or even just from all the negativity that they're seeing in the environment. But every time they log on to the news, it's all about doom and gloom and bad things happening. So there's less resilience for employees of organisations to be able to withstand the effects of something going wrong. The insurance market has become what we call hardened, and Aon, of course, will be very familiar with this. But the impacts on profitability for the insurers has been massive over the past few years with all the types of events that are going on, which means insurance premiums are going up. Insurance is harder to get, and you've got to prove that you're able to have things in place to minimise the chance of things going wrong. And the final aspect, the final trend, is the absolute lack of public tolerance for failure. So if an organisation gets something happens and they get it wrong, the public by nature, they're not willing to accept that you know, things didn't go the way they were supposed to, and social media is a huge driver of that, which makes it much harder for organisations in terms of responding to events going wrong there. So if we just go to the next slide, that has some very significant impacts on smart health. As I said at the beginning, I think the starting point here is that from a smart health perspective, there is a very, very strong opportunity for improving outcomes, for better outcomes in terms of access to data and health outcomes for people. But unfortunately, based on what I've just talked about, there are additional risks that health companies, technology companies need to be very aware of, and what they mean for the provision of smart health outcomes. The first one is cyber, and as John outlined in his presentation, one of the biggest challenges with smart health is protecting organisations' data and the transfer of that data from cyber attack. Cyber attack is a massive risk, a massive issue for every organisation. We know categorically that cyber attacks are becoming more frequent and getting more sophisticated. It's a continual battle between organisations and hackers. Cyber attack happens for malicious purposes. It might be for competitive reasons or other reasons. They happen for criminal purposes, to steal and defraud. They happen for state-sponsored reasons, or it might just be activism, that someone disagrees with the purpose. So cyber attack is a massive issue, and can certainly compromise the type of data that is being transferred or accessed in terms of smart health solutions. Linked to cyber attack is data breach. Probably more an issue with the sorts of solutions we've talked about today is a data being inadvertently released or accessed. It can happen from human error, or it potentially could happen for malicious purposes, someone trying to hack in and steal that data. We've seen a massive increase in data breach issues or incidents since COVID because of the nature of how people are working from home, using unsecured Wi-Fi hotspots or poorly secured internet connections, organisations having less security capability because of the challenges of COVID. Another challenge for smart health is technical or IT outage. The internet is a critical backbone now for so much of what we do, and we've talked about the Internet of Things. But if there's a disruption to internet, which does happen, unfortunately, we've seen it within our own NBN network, but also from power failure. Natural disasters and storms are becoming bigger issues. They're getting more severe, and they have the ability to further impact on the power infrastructure within our countries, and that will then obviously affect IT capabilities and the access to data. And then, of course, there is the potential for fraud. So the message that I provide to everybody is that as we advance our capabilities and our technologies, and particularly in smart health, we create opportunity. we need to make sure that the controls around provision of that access to data also increase, that we are able to mitigate that increased risk with better capabilities around protecting data from cyber attack, from data breach, from outages, from storm events and those kinds of things. Thank you very much.
Wonderful. Thanks for that, Dan. Great presentation, and just reminds us that the pandemic's not our only risk at the moment. There are some day-to-day risks that don't go away, but really interesting to hear about your position on risk and what firms really need to be focused on with the data challenges in our health sector today. In particular. So that concludes our presentations. Thank you to each of our presenters. We're now going to move into our expert panel discussion. So I'm going to give everybody a minute or so now to feel free to write some questions into the question function that you'll see on the screen. It's an opportunity for you to dig a little deeper into some of the information that's been shared with us today. And just before we kick into that, I'd like to give my thanks on behalf of Aon and the University of Sydney, and I'm sure on behalf of all of our clients and colleagues that are joining us today, to thank each of you for presenting today. Thanks for your expert analysis on the market and sharing with us how innovation is impacting not only healthcare in Australia, but in the region, and for being such great ambassadors of our new normal, our new better. You've all excelled with our tech today, and who would have thought that the resume of tomorrow would include things such as being proficient with presenting via WebEx or GoToWebinar. So well done to you all. So now what we're going to do is move into the panel Q&A. So I'll invite all of our presenters to hit your web cams on, if you could. And what we might do is kick off where we left off. So Dan, I might throw the first question to you, if I may. You obviously mentioned in there that COVID-19 has made certain organisations a little bit more vulnerable to cyber attack and maybe less resilient. I know that it's a big part of the specialties business here at Aon, and it certainly scares me when I hear stories about what's happening in the cyber world and how easily it can happen, both maliciously and inadvertently within a business. Why is it the case that organisations are more vulnerable, and what sort of strategies can they implement to lessen the risk of a cyber attack, in particular affecting health data?
Yeah, certainly, and look, it's an absolute valid question. One of the things that's happened since COVID is we've had to instigate remote working. This is probably the biggest issue that we've seen, and it was something that had to happen to protect our community. So by over the space of a matter of weeks, separating workforces out of what we would consider to be reasonably secure, controlled environments into their own home environments, we have created a level of weakness in terms of IT security. By that, we have people working from home using their own home internet connections. Now, by and large, an internet connection should be protected from other people or unauthorized access, but we know that's not always the case. If a password is not provided on there or the password security is not strong, then we have a weakness. Where people have issues getting access within their own home internet, they may use a public Wi-Fi hotspot. They are exceptionally dangerous to use because they're not secure networks, and they allow people to expose their own organizational infrastructure to potential hackers. So that's one of the big issues we face there. In terms of resilience as well, the other issue we've got is we've had organizations, thousands of organizations that may not have had the ability or the know-how to invest into highly secure IT systems because they're not large corporates where they've got the budgets and the capability, suddenly having to grapple with this kind of challenge because their employees are not working from their own environments. The final piece to that then is that we have hackers, unfortunately, who have seen the opportunity and have increased the volume of activity to try and penetrate organizations, steal data, or compromise them by doing ransomware attacks and those kinds of things. How do we protect it? Well, look, the biggest weakness in any IT security system are people, employees. People understanding what to click onto, what not to click onto, what to look out for, how to detect a scam and avoid exposing their organisation. So education for staff is probably the biggest weapon that organisations have. And then, of course, investing into appropriate IT security measures monitoring, logging, and response capabilities in case there is an attack.
Wonderful, thanks, Dan. That's great to hear a bit more about. There are measures that we can take to protect not only our data but our businesses as well. Branka, I might come to you if I may. A question's come through regarding the future ECG devices. I'm right in saying that's an electrocardiogram, correct? So regarding the future of these devices, who is going to be responsible for any missed or wrong diagnoses due to system failure, AI misdiagnoses, etc.? And that might be a question that, Dan, you might want to chip in as well from a risk perspective. But Branka, if you've got any thoughts on that. I think you might be on mute, Branka.
Can you hear me now?
Loud and clear, thank you.
Okay, so at present, these ECG devices with AI engines are used only as assistants to medical practitioners. So they are not used independently to make diagnosis. Like, for example, in self-driving vehicles, then the vehicle is responsible for any damages because there is no human there to drive it. But here there is eventually a medical practitioner who is going to use this digital report as a tool to provide a diagnosis of a particular disease rather than ECG devices acting independently.
Thanks, Branka. Wonderful. Does any other panelists have any thoughts on the need for intervention and the need for human oversight? I know, John, you talked about a lot of wearables and devices that are going to be emerging in the in this sector, and the need for control, the need for human intervention, and making sure that the machines aren't taking over the world. Okay, Dan, any thoughts from a security perspective with making sure that there is oversight?
Yeah, look, certainly. As Branka used the analogy of self-driving cars, ultimately, individuals need to take responsibility for their involvement in any interaction using the Internet of Things or the transmission of data, and there will be obviously legal provisions put in place to protect organisations. But what we see, unfortunately, in these situations is where there is a failing, whether the failing is on the side of the organisation or the individual, if it gets publicised, brand damage can happen very quickly and very easily to the organisation providing the technology. So that's the consideration, is how you protect yourself and your brand and confidence in your products if there is some sort of failing somewhere and there is an adverse health outcome for an individual. And as I said in my point before, there's low tolerance for anything from an organisational perspective when we get it wrong. Social media is a massive driver of that. So that's where the point that we've got to be very careful and very wary to ensure that brand is protected and you're not judged and then negatively affected from that.
Excellent. Thanks, Dan. John, I have a question here for you, and we're just wanting to know a little bit more about some detail of how your business, the Tonwo platform, can help with the chronic disease management of the future.
Yeah, I think yes. Yeah, I think right now, I think basically we have three major platforms. I think one is already in the actual usage. Number one is basically is, as I said, it's one device for many people. It's a mass beta. It's a body fat scale, which is more fit for the people who bring at home and check it, or you just put into some clinic area so the public can use it. So one device for many people. Okay, so this is one research possibility. And number two is the blood pressure, which is more like a one-on-one basis. It means whoever measure their blood pressure, it will go to their private doctor. So the private doctor can see the data also on their own mobile phone. So this one will give the doctor a chance to change the the client's behavior, the living behavior. For example, what kind of food they eat, what kind of exercise they eat, what kind of living style they have. And this intervention, it definitely would help to the doctor to achieve a lot of a kind of long-term disease like a glucose or high blood pressure or this kind of thing. Another test platform we are using is the latest one, which is the oximeter, which is it provides a real-time data input to the doctor, just in case something emergency happening. For example, the blood oxygen level is significantly reduced. It means that the client is in a dangerous condition. So you need to go to the ICU or this kind of special treatment and call for the ambulance. So this kind of thing, it can provide a real-time application. So right now we have a 3 major platform can be used now. And in terms of since each device, just like a mobile phone, it will directly call to the station. So in terms of the real-time reaction, the security, all this kind of level is exactly the same as the mobile phone we use regularly every day. So that's the 3 cases. And one of the each one we already have the different kind of report study things. You can find it out in our website. Okay.
Wonderful. Thank you for that, John. Appreciate that. Bisheng, I might come to you now, if I may, because as I mentioned in the introduction for yourself, genomics has been something I've passionately tried to understand over the last decade, but it's certainly a world of innovation that is accelerating every time we hear a little bit more about, as the lights go out in the room I'm in, more about genomics. The advances are mind-boggling. So I guess as the future of genomics, I'd love to hear a little bit about that. But what I'd love to know first is some of the challenges that the industry facing right now.
Sure. So I think one important thing is the workforce in the genomics industry. So genomics is a technology, but it generated data, but we need actually more like pathologists and the geneticists to help to interpret the data and develop a report that can be understandable to the clinicians and eventually to the patients or general public. So I guess currently one of the main bottleneck is in the workforce, that we actually have a very limited group of experts that actually have practiced the pathology in genomics area. So and the second is about how we can have a more affordable and also more accurate approach to analysis more and more accumulated data, because the sequencing cost will drop down. That means more and more genomics data will be generated. But how can we further develop the bioinformatics tools and the computing platforms and workflows to help to, for example, more automatically analyze the data and also generate the report? I think that's the second challenge. And the third is about the acceptance of genomics sequencing as a common tool in the clinical practice, because it is a revolutionary technology. It has advantages over some of the conventional or traditional sort of a medical testing approach. But I think the adoptance and understanding of the technology and applications in the actual real-world clinical practice is also need more education and more training and more direct involvement between the technology developers and also the clinical practitioners. I think that's the 3 main challenges that we are facing now.
Thank you for that, Bisheng. Just in terms of the development in your space, what's the future direction for genomics? And I know that that's probably a function of investment and mostly from the private sector. But is there government into funding coming through that is significant enough for us to branch out our future direction? So broadly, what's the future direction of the technology and development?
So I think the future development is definitely to make the genomics technology more affordable and accessible to the general public. Considering the IT industry, I think we are at the similar stage of development in the IT industry. You know, when beginning at the very beginning, that we can only afford like a very old version telephone, and nowadays probably every single person would have one or more than one mobile devices. So I think that's will be the future trend, is definitely to further drop down the cost for the genomic sequencing. That will help to expand the possibility to allow more people to develop further applications. And it's just like the apps in the phone, that you know you have this infrastructure, and you can allow more people to develop more applications based on the infrastructure. And the applications can be more targeted and in a specific area, like maybe each individual rare disease, or each type of cancer, even each more popular disease in certain region or certain population. So and I think in terms of the investment, that there are a lot of public and private investment into this sector in the genomics industry and technology. So I think it will be a sort of public-private partnership approach would be more beneficial for the industry development.
Great, thank you, Bisheng. Appreciate that. Branka, I might come to you if I may. Another question has come through just in terms of the responsibility of diagnoses and any challenge or chance that AI may slightly get it wrong. And it's when it comes to the data that a medical practitioner is utilizing to make a diagnosis, if that is based on any form in its original sense, is dependent on AI, which may be flawed. What might that create as a challenge for the practitioner? And more broadly to that, I'd love to hear your thoughts on how do we actually get data to train AI algorithms? Are we learning? Are we watching? Are we listening to all interactions in healthcare to learn for the future of AI in this space?
Okay, thank you, Damien. As explained in the previous talk, we have AI engines which help with diagnostics, and these AI algorithms are trained by data, so they are data based. So we use historical data to train them, and then real-time data to make diagnostics. And so the more historical data we have, the better are the algorithms. So it is then an issue of getting real data and enough data from clinical hospital environments. And so in general, in our research, we work with hospitals to get data, and with hospital-related research centers. So for example, for ECG data, we've been getting them from 2 hospitals in China, and from Westmed Hospital in Australia, and a Westmed Applied Research Center. So, and these are authentic data, and so we use them not only to train the algorithms for a particular disease, but also for being able to make diagnostics on multiple conditions. So for this ECG device, the tests have been done in hospitals, and they are able to diagnose more than 50 different heart conditions.
Great, thanks, Branka. I have a question that's come in here, which might be for yourself first, Branka, and then open to the panel. And that's Olivier, who's asking, is wondering how such IoT health devices will travel between networks. Obviously, hopefully, when we're allowed to travel more internationally, how will devices be able to be connected? Obviously, this connection of the Internet of Things is reliant on networks. How will that happen in the future?
Oh, okay, so that question relates to interoperability between networks, and for that we have international global standards. For example, 4G is an international standard which connects all mobile phones worldwide. So that started actually with 4G. Before that, we did not have global interoperability, and 4G is a similar network. 4G and 5G have interoperability, and some of the devices that John talked about, NB-IoT, they are also interoperable. It's just a matter of installing them in all countries. So China is ahead of everyone else in making these systems working there, but that is an international standard, and it is compatible with the existing 4G and 5G infrastructure. So the brief answer is, yeah, these devices are interoperable and they follow world standards.
Wonderful. Thanks, Branka. John, I have a question for you. Obviously, it's devices in e-health have been around for some time, and I'm interested in understanding from you, in comparison to similar e-healthcare devices in the market, what unique service does the device with IoT technology provide to a patient?
Yes, thank you. Good question. Basically, I think Branka already covered a little bit on the area. The NB-IoT and M1 technology is belong to the 5G, under the 5G protocol. Okay, so even it uses a 2G bandwidth, but it's under the 5G protocol. Basically, it requires the infrastructure in Australia to be ready. And right now in Australia, Vodafone already finished the infrastructure for NB-IoT, and Telstra and Optus finished for M1. Okay, once the infrastructure finished, all the device would directly call the tower, call the wireless tower, which is a individual kind of a small station like a LoRa. So it means from security standpoint, it's already become more secure, just exactly same security control as the mobile phone we are using today for the phone. And another time, the distance of the coverage of the tower is pretty big. Even in the elevator or in the underground floor, you can find the signal. So it's more reliable. And most important, the infrastructure of the cellular phone system already built. So basically all the operator, for example, like a Telstra, Vodafone or Optus, they don't need to invest any kind of heavy capital. All they need to do is a software upgrade. To accelerate the speed and build up other functions like a positioning. Because the positioning is not based on GPS, it's based on the tower station. So use the triangle calculation to calculate the position. So it means it's more accurate. So it's a plus minus about 20 centimeters, versus GPS plus minus 1 or 2 meters. So for the individual client, for example, like senior people, if they fall down on outdoor, we need to exactly position where it is. So it's very accurate. It's very accurate. Also, the most important is the power consumption of the device is super low. It's super low. Okay, just like in the old time, why we use the old mobile phone, because the band frequency is very low. So the power consumption of the device is relatively low. So in the old time, our mobile phone can stand by for about 1 month, and it can call for about 1 week. And go to IoT device, the device can stand by for nearly 10 years if it's kind of a very low power consumption mode. But even for the frequently usage, it will be last for roughly about 1 year. So this is very meaningful for the senior people who do not remember how to charge their smartphone. So compared to Bluetooth or compared to Wi-Fi, it is very easy for the senior people to use it, because they nearly can forget the device exists, because they ask the nurse to charge it maybe once per year or maybe once per 6 months to ensure the device is more reliable. And the device also decided for long distance kind of a signal, versus Bluetooth about 10 meters, Wi-Fi about 50 meters, and that, like the wireless dead phone, is about 100 to 200 meters. So this one is about 15 kilometers. So even in the very urban area, we can easy to coverage. And right now we are working really hard with the operator to minimum the cost of the chip. So anyway, they don't use it. So it's supposed to be very cheap. We are looking for less than 1 cup of coffee cost to provide the non-stoppable connection for the IoT. We also working with the hardware manufacturer in China to try to minimum the cost of each chipset and each module. And we try to cut it down to below $5, so that it make it really affordable for any kind of device around the world. And it is also small enough to integrate into a kind of wearable device. So I think roughly we are moving on that direction. I think Australia basically is ready. It's roughly ready. We already get the commercial chip or commercial SIM card from Vodafone, and we also get the test SIM card from Telstra. We are under testing in Queensland and in Griffith University, and also in Sydney. So we are testing in 2 cities. Yeah, basically 2 cities, and to make sure our device work.
Wonderful. Thank you, John. I'm going to post a question to the panel. There's been a few questions that have come in, and I'm going to tread carefully around this, but there's some interest with those folks that are tuning in just around some of the challenges with geopolitical tensions, both in the region and also with the US and China, and the impacts that that's having not only on research, but also on business operations where we are crossing borders. Dan, I don't want to throw to you because I don't want to put pressure on anybody to answer this, but do we have a view from a geopolitical risk perspective? And then I might open it up to the panel as well.
Yeah, look, I think from a geopolitical perspective, look, it is one of many threats that an organisation, whether in smart health or any other industry, really just need to be monitoring. Where it becomes challenging, I think, in a very obvious way, is disruption to things like supply chain. If there are challenges, if there are conflicts, or there's steps taken by any country involved in a geopolitical situation, then there can be issues that have very material effects on the supply of goods, on the cost of goods to receive or to export. And I think there's some of the things that we've seen over the last 6 months, either overtly or inadvertently. But if we just look at what the pandemic itself has done, our supply chains were challenged by that. Look, I think it's for organisations, it's very much about monitoring and then making the assessment to say, well, look, if there is a potential impact from some sort of tension somewhere, how could that affect our organisation? Could it affect our customers? Could it affect our brand? Could it affect our supply chain? They're the kinds of considerations. And then building plans to deal with it and running scenarios to say, well, if this does happen, what are we going to do about it?
Wonderful. Thanks, Dan. I appreciate that. Does anybody else have a view?
Yeah, so I may also jump in that BGI somehow was also, how to say, got involved in the a little bit in terms under the geopolitical tension at the moment. So I think from an organization's perspective, that I guess the geopolitical tension is not sort of the organization itself can handle, or our individual effort may not be able to resolve the issue. It's a whole global impact, and just the global development, the trend. But I think for individual organizations' perspective, that we definitely have to be more vigilant, and also to be more clear about our business in each individual countries to be compliant with each country's laws and regulations and standards, and that we need to do more sort of self-review and to be more sort of cautious about to consult with the expert in particular region and countries of our each step and practice, and to be to avoid any potential risk because of the limited understanding of our business practice in certain area. But I think in overall that in terms of the scientific research and the technology development, still I think the global collaboration is a way to go. That we've seen so many revolutions, development in the technology cannot be achieved by a single organization. So be more open, and the collaboration is still, I think, the the overall direction and the overall intention, I think, in terms of global organization to move forward.
Wonderful.
Yeah, I think
Thanks,
we share the same concern. I think what we did right now is we move Australia platform more focused on the CoCom, M1, M2, on top of NB-IoT. So basically, we try to service Australian community with a more US-based technology versus China-based technology. That's what our current strategy.
Wonderful. Thanks, John. I appreciate that. And I know there's a couple of other questions which I will circulate for some answers from everybody, because I'd love to get some responses. But we are at time, and I know that some of our panelists have some pressing travel to get to. So on behalf of everyone, I'm sure that everybody would agree that that's been hugely informative, delivered by experts, as we can tell. Very clear in this space, I should say, both locally and in the region. And it's fair to say the future of the health sector is in very good hands. So on behalf of Linda Hu from our Insurance Service, Susan, Olivier, and the team at the China Study Centre at Sydney University, thank you to each and every one of you for your efforts today. We appreciate all of your time and your generous offering to stick around for some of that Q&A. This webinar has been recorded, so there'll be an opportunity for us to share this digitally as well. Now that concludes today's webinar. Thank each and everybody that has joined, and I hope you've got something out of today. Again, it's not the end opportunity to ask questions. If there's any more, please do shoot them through to Linda, Susan, and we'll ensure that we have those answered. And thank you for your attendance, and to everybody listening in, please stay safe and have a great rest of your day. Thank you so much.